Steps for a safe and successful system unit assembly and disassembly. You may think that disassembly and assembly of system unit is easy. Yes, it is, provided that you have done it correctly and safely. The first thing that every computer technician should keep in mind is safety. You must think that electrocution and nasty cuts are the most common injuries of a computer technician might have, and we need to avoid it by following simple safety procedures. To disassemble and assemble a computer is integral as a being computer hardware servicing technician. Aside from electrocution, we must also think that the computer that we're about to disassemble requires care. Safety of the equipment must also be considered, not only thinking of the computer's safety, but also to that of your tools. Your tools are your best friends, and you need to take care of them, so they in return can make your job easy and fast. Example, if you leave your software installer anywhere, accidentally falls to the ground and accumulates scratches, do you think that you can still use the installer again? Another thing is to consider safety on environment. As computer technicians, we must be responsible to take care of our environment. What does computer technicians do that might have ill effects on the environment? Printer inks, cut wires, PVCs, and general electronic wastes, as these electronic wastes are the hardest type of waste to recycle. So be responsible as a computer servicing technician, and listed below is the checklist of a safe and successful disassembly and assembly of the computer. Steps of safe and successful disassembly and assembly. To disassemble, prepare all your tools, gloves, mask, paper, and pen for documentation. Before opening the system case, be sure to turn off the system unit. Turn off and unplug the AVR from the wall socket as well. After that, unplug all the cables connecting to the back of the system unit. After clearing all the connected cables, put the system unit on an empty working table. Number 3, touch the unpainted part of your system unit with your bare hands to remove the ESD of your body. This is an important part before opening your system case. You might destroy your random access memory chipsets and other components of your motherboard. Number 4, remove the screws of the side cover opposite to the side where the ports are. By most system cases, if you are facing the back of your system unit, the right side cover is to be removed. Return the screws back to the screw holes to avoid losing them. Fifth, once the side cover is removed, turn your system side down with the opened side of system unit should be facing upward. When you can comfortably look down on the inside of your system case. We are now ready to remove the components inside of the computer. The first thing we need to do is remove the power supply. To be able to remove the power supply, remove first the Molex connectors. The white plastic connector is the tip of the wires of the power supply, or the motherboard power connector, drive power connectors, the floppy drive power connector, the SATA power connectors, and the 4-pin 12-volt motherboard connector. With all power connectors are removed from the motherboard and drives, the power supply is now okay to be removed as well. Always have to remove components placed in a remote and safe place, away from where you are performing computer disassembly. Next to remove are the random access memory, the video card, and the other card peripheral components. Again, have them secure in a safe place and put the screws back. Clean the connector edges of the card peripherals by rubbing the gold-colored edge moderately with a rubber eraser, then brushing off the shredding. Do not attempt to clean the edge by blowing or brush it off with your fingers. Our body is an acidic and you might also cause the edges to tarnish faster. With the power supply removed, the data cable should be removed next. This includes IDE, SATA, and floppy drive cables. Secure the removed data cables. 9. Remove all drivers. These will include your hardware, hard drives, CD, DVD drives, and a floppy drive. Since all peripherals were removed, the next thing to do is to remove the front panel connectors. This will include the USB front panel and the audio header. If you are not sure of which connector is being matched to, write down or document the connections and orientations of the connectors before removing them from the headers. Remember that all of the motherboards have the same header configuration, so be careful and watchful while documenting. 11. After removing the header connectors, we are now ready to remove the motherboard. To remove the motherboard, relocate first all the screws and lighten and screws and unscrews alternately with these techniques. We are reducing the risk of wrapping or bending our motherboard. It may not have a large impact on the bendings of the motherboard, but still, it does have even a little. Upon lightly loosening all screws, remove all screws then. Remove the motherboard by carefully and lightly pulling it away from the shield. Why? Because we need to free the ports that are fitted from the holes of the IU shield. After freeing the motherboard ports, lift up the motherboard and put it on the safe place. And lastly, clean the system unit traces with your brush. Also clean your motherboard and the rest of the peripherals being removed.
To assemble, provided that all peripherals are clean and ready, we are now going to assemble your computer. In assembling back your computer, what we have done during this assembling is just doing the reverse order to assemble it. Since the motherboard was last to be removed, it should then be the first to put back. Remove the retaining screws from the stand-up screws of the motherboard and let the motherboard set on it with the ports facing out towards the input-output shield. Lightly push the motherboard to set its ports to the holes of the input-output shield. Put the retaining screws on the motherboard screws holes but do not tighten it yet. Now, be careful in doing this one, and if this is your first time doing it, it is best if you lend a hand for assistance. Lightly push the motherboard towards the input-output shield and lightly tighten the motherboard retaining screws alternately until all screws are tight enough but not too tight. This is to ensure that your ports are protruding correctly out of the input-output shield. Once the motherboard is secured, put back the SP, audio, and USB header connectors as you will be using your documentations for reference. Put back the drives to the correct drive base. Connect the RAM, video card, and other card peripherals to its proper slot, inserting it properly, and some cards will require screws to be secured. The data cables, IDE, SATA, floppy cables should be connected to its proper headers and drives. Remember the proper configuration of the placement of the cables, especially if you are dealing with the IDE cables. After the data cables are properly connected, put back the power supply and secure it with the screws you removed earlier. After securing the PSU to the chassis, connect the power connectors to the drives and the motherboard. Once all peripherals are connected properly, have a final inspection by visually checking for lost connection or improper connection. Once the system unit connections are thoroughly checked and verified, connect the keyboard, the monitor, and the power connector, then power up the computer. This initial powering up of the computer while the side cover is open ensures us that everything is okay before putting back the side cover. In case something goes wrong, We can accessibly correct the problem right away. If everything is fine, shut down the computer. Unplug the AVR and remove the cables connected to the back of your computer. Put the side cover back. Eight. Put the assembled computer back to its place and connect the rest of the cables and connectors. Power it up and see if there are unusual effects of your disassembling assembling procedure done earlier.